and we're going to go ahead and get started. So again, I'm Mike Fiffick. I'm your presenter this evening. I am the managing partner here at Fiffick Law Group. We are the Legal Shield provider law firm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And we handle work here for Legal Shield members in Pennsylvania. We do a lot of estate planning here. I think we've done something like 30 to 40,000 estate planning engagements over the last 10 to 15 years. So we see lots of different situations out there, especially in this day and age. The traditional family is no longer traditional anymore. I'm not even sure that that actually exists. We've got all kinds of family situations and have had to adapt many times to just make sure that what we're doing fits the needs of our clients out there. So we see all different kinds of family situations, mixed families, second marriages, non-traditional families, all different kinds of things. We're having to plan for all of that. So there really isn't a situation that you could present to the firm here that my estate planning group has not had to plan for. So we're very happy to have a lot of experience to provide some services, estate planning services to clients all across Pennsylvania. And so tonight, I'm going to talk to you about digital estate planning in particular. It's one segment of the estate planning message here. So let's go ahead and get this teed up so that it looks nice, and away we go. So I like to start this off with a little bit of a cautionary tale. 2 years before his death, I'm going to talk about Leonard Bernstein. So Leonard Bernstein, the famous, world-renowned composer, orchestrator, conductor, musician. 2 years before he passed away, he began writing his memoirs, right? And he was doing that on his personal computer. It was really started to replace the pencil and paper for purposes of writing any type of long document. And it was called his Blue Ink Autobiography. It's a cautionary tale that's relevant for the digital estate planning because of a lack of planning for those digital assets, like you might be typing on a computer. So we're going to talk a little bit about what happened with Bernstein's Blue Ink autobiography. So what are digital assets? What are we really talking about here? It's very broad, right? We're talking about any information or data that is stored electronically, whether it's on a device or whether it's online in the cloud. And really, we have lots and lots of electronic information that's out there in all different kinds of places. So the devices could include smartphones, laptops, desktops, iPads, whatever, tablets, cameras that you might have out there, flash drives, e-readers, any type of a device that you can pick up and carry is a device where electronic data or information can be stored. On average, there are 3,000 files on a digital device that you have. So you've got a lot of stuff out there. And just think about it for a minute. What's on your phone? Your phone is really the main repository these days of where all of your pictures are, all of your videos are. Think about all of those files that are stored just on your phone. Maybe you back them up into the cloud, maybe not. Some folks don't have that set up, and so everything is on their phone. Now, digital assets aren't only cryptocurrency. And I think when we talk about digital assets, a lot of people immediately think, well, that's cryptocurrency. I'm not in crypto. I've never invested in crypto. I don't know what crypto is. I don't want to know what crypto is, whatever it is. And so they just kind of tune out on this topic of digital assets. But really, hopefully you understand that you've got digital assets. And think about all of things that are in the cloud, right? We have a huge prevalence, a growing prevalence of digital assets that are out there that you have to kind of be worried about. So 8 in 10 Americans are on social media these days. And if you've got social media and you're active on social media, you've got digital assets in your social media accounts as well. If you're on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn, you may have pictures on there, articles on there, posts, things of that nature that you are planning to retain. And social media is growing by leaps and bounds. There's been an increase of 75% from 4.8 accounts per person in 2014 to 8.4 accounts in this day and age. So it's doubled, basically doubled just in the last 6 or 7 years. And it's going to continue to grow as social media providers continue to grow, right? We've got Truth Social that might be coming on board here, and a variety of other social media pages that are out there that are growing. The average American internet user has 150 online accounts of one kind or another that require a password, and everything is really digitizing. We are digitizing, or there's a digitalization of our lives, right? We are moving away from paper and into the digital world. And so that's where all of your stuff, that's where all of your files, that's where all of everything that's important to you is going to be if it isn't there already for you. And so why should you care about this? I guess maybe I need to put a dollar sign on it for you. And I've seen some estimates out there that say that the average value of the digital assets that you have is worth $55,000. Probably it's going to be worth more than that as we move forward. And so that could be your cryptocurrency that's out there. It could be your accounts. It could be stuff that you have in Cash App or Venmo. It could be the value of the documents that you have, all of the important records that you have about you personally or your business that may all only be in digital format. You may not have pieces of paper anymore that you can go get. And so if you lose those digital files, those digital assets, they may be gone for good. They may have disappeared. You may not have them anymore. 70% of people think that digital payment methods will overtake cash and credit cards by 2030. And the United States is getting ready to issue digital currency. So it's coming, and it's coming a lot faster than you might imagine. So cards are probably going to go away. You're going to be using your phone, your mobile device, or whatever it is to make all of your payments. That's just the way vendors are going. They're going to want to do away with all of those little kiosks and things of that nature. It's going to be more secure. Even though it doesn't seem like it'll be more secure, it will actually be more secure. 68% of mobile payment app users on average, they have about $287 in those payment accounts. So if you're using Venmo, Cash App, things of that nature, you've got money that's sort of floating around in there. Maybe you've got money because you have, an eBay account, or you've got some credits on your electronic accounts of some kind or another that are out there. I mean, there's value locked up in those digital assets that you really kind of have to pay attention to. Now, cryptocurrency is definitely part of the digital asset landscape. It's a big part of it. And cryptocurrency is here to stay. It's going to continue growing. There's been a 45% increase in the number of crypto owners, crypto wallets, from January 2020 to January 2021 alone. That's an estimated 66 million crypto wallets. And for those of you that aren't familiar with cryptocurrency, that's where your crypto is kept. It's in a wallet. It's the code that you have access to your cryptocurrency. That's where it's at. 21.2 million Americans own cryptocurrency of some kind. And again, it's only going to continue to grow in prevalence. So a lot of people are going to be getting into it. Maybe some are getting out of it because of the hit it took recently in the market, but it'll come back. It's here to stay. On average, a person now has 80 apps installed on their phone. 175 billion apps are downloaded annually, right? And on average, people use at least 9 apps on a daily basis, 30 apps, different apps every month. So think about all the time that you spend on your phone. And if you don't know how much time it is, you can certainly have your phone tell you how much screen time that you're spending. It might surprise you how much you're interacting with those apps on your phone, and all of the information and data that is kept in those apps. If you're a Legal Shield member and you use the Legal Shield app, you have all of your data about your interactions with your provider firm in your app. There's a lot of information in there. So I think it's a good idea to sort of sit down and create what I call a digital asset inventory. And this is something that you can go find on my website at fificlaw.com. And there'll be a citation at the end of the webinar that you can write that down. But if you go to the estate planning site page on my website, you'll see a digital asset page. And you can download a form that you can use to create a digital asset inventory for yourself. But this infographic is just to give you an idea of how broad the category of digital assets really are that you might need to take down from an inventory standpoint. So you've got email accounts, your social media accounts, digital storage. Perhaps you have a Dropbox account or iCloud, Google Drive. If you use Microsoft tools, you've got a OneDrive. I have a lot of things in a Google Drive that I use personally. Maybe you have reward points. All of these things are part of your digital asset inventory that is a good idea for you to sort of take down and make sure that you can wrap your mind around what you have and where everything is and what kind of value there might be there. Photo storage in particular, I think, is something that folks need to pay attention to, because if you've got it all on your phone, and maybe this has happened to you, you've broken your phone, lost your phone, wrecked your phone, whatever, and all your photos were on there, and that became inaccessible all of a sudden. You might be a little bit upset about that, to lose all of those memories. So it's a good idea to manage your photos if they're all stuck in your phone and you're not necessarily tech savvy. It's a good idea to back those up into the cloud using some type of a photo storage, or maybe you just share them with family members. There are those sharing sites that you can have out there. So there's lots of different types of digital assets, and I encourage you to spend some time sitting down and preparing an inventory of all of the digital accounts that you have. I think you'll end up being surprised. So why should you create a digital estate plan? Number one, I think I'm going to just go off the list here and just say, I think that a digital estate plan is going to be your estate plan in the not too distant future, if it isn't already. So creating a digital estate plan, you could probably just erase digital there and say, this is going to be an integral part of creating your estate plan. It can't be missed. And if you have a will or a power of attorney, and it does not make reference to digital assets, then they're out of date, and you really should consider getting them revised. They really need to mention digital assets and have some type of planning language for digital assets. So, but there are a lot of other reasons why you're going to want to do digital estate plan. Number one, it's to maintain privacy, right? You may have things in your digital world that you want to maintain private, that you might not want anybody to ever have access to. Or maybe it's just that you only want certain people to have access to all of your stuff or some of your stuff. In the digital world, it's a great way for you to sort of segment your estate if you want certain people to have access to certain things. You can much more effectively do that whenever your assets are digitized or in the digital world versus regular stuff. So it's really easy to segment that and show certain people only certain things, and keep everything else private, right, from one another. You also may want to maintain control of your online reputation and persona. If you're out there on Facebook, a lot of people are very active on Facebook or other social media accounts or LinkedIn. You've got an online reputation or persona of some kind. Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, I don't know, but you may want to make sure that you can maintain that. After you pass away or you're incapacitated and you don't have a digital estate plan or a digital plan for your social media accounts, you're no longer in control of those. And somebody else may have control over your digital persona, your persona that's out there. And it's forever, right? It's forever. Your digital persona is going to live forever and ever and ever. So you might want to think a little bit about what you want to have happen to that after you're gone. You will give your family greater peace of mind. Really, it's very stressful when somebody passes away for their family to sort of pick up the pieces. And it's particularly stressful for somebody who was the person who controlled the money, right? Did all the financial planning. It's really difficult for the survivor of that person to pick up the financial pieces. Very stressful. And I've dealt with that, especially with couples where the one who ran all the finances passes away and the other one really doesn't have any idea what was going on. That wasn't his or her role, in the household. And now they have to figure all of this stuff out. Think about how much more stressful it would be to your family, right? For them to have to figure this stuff out, not knowing where your digital assets are or what they are. It used to be when somebody passed away, you pretty much had a good idea of all of the assets they had by waiting for the mail to come in for a couple of 3 months. By then, you would have gotten all the bank statements and account statements and everything else that person gets in life, and you have a pretty good idea of what they have. Well, we've gone paperless in this world. You probably don't get account statements for many of your digital accounts anymore. And literally, if you've not told somebody that you own a digital account or you have not created a digital asset inventory, they won't know that you have it. And so all of the work that you do, saving that money, right? Guess what that account is worth if nobody knows that it's there? Zero. And so it's very important for you to gather all of this stuff and provide some type of plan to your family so that it doesn't add extra stress on them to A, go hunting for all of this stuff, and then B, figure out what you might have wanted to have happen to it. What do I do with dad's Facebook account? What does mom want me to do with all of these pictures that she has? Those types of things. You definitely want to protect your assets from risks of identity theft, hacking, fraud. Those are real problems. I think we all know that identity theft and hacking are real problems while you're alive, but they're especially a problem while you're dead. Post-mortem, the incidences of post-mortem identity theft are ever increasing. Those are the easiest people to defraud because they're dead and they aren't going to do anything about it. And their family members, especially if their family members don't know these accounts exist, right, aren't going to do anything about it either. So it's a great way for identity thieves and fraudsters to hack into your accounts and take your money. Maybe nobody ever finds out. So you got to protect yourself from that kind of stuff. You want to identify assets for your agent, if it's a power of attorney, or for your executor after you pass away. These people are charged with managing your financial affairs. Well, you've got to equip them with the information that they need in order to do the job that you've charged them with. How difficult would it be if you were somebody's power of attorney, they became incapacitated, and you had no idea whatsoever where they had assets, and you had to go try to start figuring that stuff out. That's a real tall order to ask somebody to do whenever you've not started them off with the information. You want to avoid incurring additional costs and expenses in the event of incapacity. You got to get people get people set. It'll facilitate reducing the cost of your estates. We're going to talk about all of these here. So why create a digital estate plan? Your family could lose big money, right? It's a very important. Let's just get down to the brass tacks, right? If you don't have a digital estate plan, your family's going to lose, big money. That's just the fact of the matter. Digital wallets for crypto don't have account names or titles, right? They aren't registered with a bank or a financial institution. So access to digital wallets is controlled by a private key. And your digital wallet worth $100,000, let's say that you've got crypto that's worth $100,000, without that private key has no value whatsoever. It's useless, right? It's zero value. And in the crypto world, there is no change password option. There's no 800 number that you can call for assistance to say, oh my God, I lost my key. Please help me with that. There's nobody there that's going to help you recover a lost key. So sudden death or incapacity without proper planning, right, can render an investor in cryptocurrency, it can render all of that totally worthless instantaneously. And so here's another cautionary tale. I like to say, don't be a digital dummy. Matthew Mellon was a prolific crypto investor, and he was especially noted for his investments in a cryptocurrency called Ripple and XRF. And he was a descendant of the Mellon family and the Anthony Drexel of Drexel, Byrne, and Lambert, famous investors, right? So you would think this guy would be pretty smart about what to do with his digital assets. Well, the problem for him is he passed away at a very early age of 54. I can totally relate to that. I'm 54 right now. And unfortunately, he stored his cryptocurrency, his private keys, right, to his digital wallets in what are called cold wallets, right, in banks across the country. Well, he didn't tell anybody where any of this stuff was. And so to date, nobody has found this stuff. $500 million of cryptocurrency is worth zero. His family got absolutely nothing out of that. Maybe it'll get solved one of these days, but I don't know. It hasn't been solved yet. So cryptocurrency, another reason that we talked about doing a digital estate plan is to maintain privacy, right? And I like the story of George and Martha Washington. The desire for privacy is nothing new. They wanted privacy as well. And after George's death, it is thought that Martha burned the majority of her written correspondence with her husband over the course of their marriage, right? So they wanted to maintain privacy. And you may want to maintain privacy of things that you have in the digital world, in your email box, that's stored on your computer or on your phone for whatever reason. So wanting to maintain privacy is as old as our country is, and it's just not something that's uncommon for people to be concerned about. What types of things might you want to be maintained private? Well, there might be some things that are illegal, right? Things that you have in your devices or in the cloud or wherever that if they were found out, might have gotten you arrested while you were alive. So you may want to be wary of those things. Perhaps they're embarrassing. Could you put something that you've got in your digital sphere in plain sight when the family comes over for Thanksgiving, right? If the answer is no, then you probably have some digital assets that fall into this category. And maybe there are some things that you just want to keep secret. Information that you don't want folks to know, affiliations or relationships that you have or have had that you don't want anybody to know about, or you don't want certain people to know about. So that's another type of thing that you may want to keep private. When it's, there's a record basically of everything that we do. Emails, texts, documents, one way or the other. We create more of a record now than we ever have. And so it is more likely that there's something in your digital devices, in your digital storage places, that you might want to maintain as secret or private. So you may also want to control your online reputation. And I have a couple of examples of this. Herman Cain, if you know Herman Cain, the 2012 Republican presidential candidate, he passed away during the COVID pandemic. And surprisingly, after he passed away, continued to denounce Democratic politicians on his social media accounts weeks after he passed away. Some of the posts were posthumous. Here are some of the quotes that were attributed to Herman Cain after he passed away, right? I love some of these comments. Gilbert Gottfried is another star who passed away recently, and somebody hacked into his Twitter account and started sending obscene tweets on Gilbert Gottfried's account. And of course, people hadn't known at that time that he had passed away already. And so here it turns out, at least for Herman Cain, his kids got into his accounts or had access to accounts and just started posting things on behalf of their father. And they thought that they were doing something that they thought that he would be okay with. Maybe he would have been. I don't know, right? But is that something that you want to trust to folks that have access to your social media accounts? You better hope that there isn't some kind of hidden grudge that somebody wants to has an axe to grind against you for, and they've got access to your accounts, and all of a sudden you pass away, they start posting stuff that you would not be too happy about. So it's just something to think about out there. You got to give your family greater peace of mind, and that's one of the things that I talk about as a primary motivator for estate planning. Is you got to take care of your family, right? Doing estate planning is loving your family. Think about it. You spend every day, 5 days a week, 6, 7 days a week, right? Working and creating wealth for yourself, eking out a living. And maybe you would like to pass some of that on to your family. So you spend a lot of time creating an estate. And a lot of folks, mind-blowingly, spend zero time engaging in estate planning because maybe they think they're never going to die or there's always going to be time to do it. Well, we all know that that's just not the truth. The end can come for us at any time, at any minute. And, you're going to get caught by surprise if you wait for that kind of thing. You're not always going to have time to do this. And it's selfish to, especially if you have a family, to not spend the little bit of time that really it takes comparatively to engage in some estate planning. So it's really loving your family and taking care of your family. So look at some of these statistics out here that show what an impact it can have on your family when you don't take care of your digital estate. There are millions and millions of dead people that have Facebook accounts that are floating around out there that never change, right? 8,000 Facebook users die on a daily basis. And it's estimated that there may be more dead Facebook users or accounts associated with dead people than people that are alive by 2100. That's not that far away. So do you really want your Facebook account to be floating around out there for your family to see forever and ever? Depending on what your last post looks like, that could be pretty embarrassing. I don't know. So it might be something to think about. Other reasons, we've talked about these already. Protecting risk from identity theft, reducing cost of settling your estate. Again, if you don't have an inventory of your digital assets and you haven't had a plan for them, it can be really difficult to administer your estate. It's becoming more difficult. I'm running into this more and more where folks pass away and they've got an executor that doesn't know their inventory of assets. I mean, none of us necessarily are walking around and telling our kids all of the assets that we have and where they are and our account numbers and all that kind of stuff. That's just not something that most people do. They usually keep that information pretty close to the vest, right? And so it makes it really difficult for somebody to administer your estate or to pay your bills and act as your agent if you're incapacitated for some reason, if you don't have this stuff written down in some type of an inventory or a plan. So let's talk a little bit about how to create a digital estate plan. So the first thing you have to do, we've talked about this, is create a digital asset inventory. If you're going to go do garden variety estate planning, old-fashioned estate planning, you're going to need to prepare an inventory of your assets, right? This is just an extension of that thing that you already do, except you need to create a digital asset inventory. That might include some of your traditional assets that are just in the digital world where you don't have paper statements on them anymore, but it's also going to include your digital assets. The next step is you have to decide what you want done with these assets. Before everybody had all of these digital accounts, right, and digital existences out there in the digital world, it was a little bit easier to think about what you wanted done with your assets. But now it's a lot harder because we've made it harder, right? We've multiplied the number of things that we really should be thinking about whenever we are putting an estate plan together. And we really have to extend our thought process and our planning into the digital assets that we have. You should be thinking about naming a digital executor. And that might not always be the same person that you choose to be your garden variety executor, the person who carries out the plan that you've set out in your will for a division of your assets. You know, that person isn't always somebody who has the skill set or aptitude to deal with all of your digital assets, right? Those might be two different hats that people have to wear. And so you really should be thinking, you know, for most married couples, they say my spouse is my executor and then maybe my kids or something. Well, your spouse may not be equipped to be your digital executor, right? Because they're just as old as you are, or if you're not digitally inclined, maybe they're not digitally inclined. So you have to be thinking about, you know, do I have the right person who's going to be able to handle this job? And if you can't put it all under one hat, then, you know, it's fully appropriate to name an executor and also a different person as a digital executor in your will. So you're going to want to store that digital inventory that you've created, and you want to put it in a secure location. You're not going to list your digital assets or your digital inventory in your will, because your digital inventory is going to be a listing, right? Ideally, of where the account is, what the account number, if there's an account number, how you access that account. So username, password, PIN code, perhaps security questions, depending on the level of security associated with the account. And then there should also be some instructions associated with the account so that your digital executor knows what to do with that asset after you passed away. It might be as simple as delete the Facebook account, delete my LinkedIn, or perhaps it's post an in memoriam on those accounts so that people know that I've passed away if they come to see me. I would want my friends and family to know that I had passed away, that I haven't contacted for a long time. Maybe you want your digital executor to delete all of your emails or set an autoresponder to say, you know, Joe Smith has died on this such and such date, and, you know, inquiries can be made with so-and-so. Or, you know, if you wanted to donate, you could donate to something, whatever it is, like an online obituary sort of a thing. But people are going to continue to communicate with you via email after you pass away. And would you want all of those email communications, those texts, those instant messages, whatever it is, to go unanswered and have people wondering, why am I not getting a response? And then, of course, you want to make it legal. And there's no substitute for having a will. So I think I've talked about this already. The digital asset inventory has to create this list of online accounts, and then what to do with it. So it really has to be pretty specific, and you're going to have to keep up to date with it too, you know, because we do change our passwords from time to time. So it's very important that you will take a look at this and then update it on a periodic basis. Again, you know, what do you want done with these accounts after you pass away? Autoresponder, you want them transferred. Maybe you want some of these accounts to be transferred to family members or friends or business contacts. If you've got points on your credit cards, or you've got, you know, a miles account with an airline, or points with a hotel chain of some kind with some type of points, you know, those have real value. And if you travel a lot for business, you've probably accumulated a lot of points, and you use those from time to time. You would want to do some planning to make sure that somebody can have access to those points and redeem them and get the value out of them, you know, after you pass away. Maybe you've got an online business of some kind, where you've got, you know, a little online store with Etsy or eBay or Amazon or some other type of an online retailer, and that's your side gig, you know, that you're doing. You know, what do you want to have happen with those online stores? Maybe you've got a website that you sell things on the side. You know, you're going to have to give somebody instructions on what to do with those things. Maybe you want them to continue to sell pending items that are on eBay and Etsy, but they have to know about all of that stuff. And the folks that are doing that kind of thing are really growing. There are a lot of people that do that kind of stuff. You know, I sell used things on OfferUp. I do that stuff all the time. You know, I don't want to lose any of that stuff. I want somebody to sort of take care of those things. talked about digital executor a little bit too. I think I get ahead of myself sometimes, but again, it's just important to make sure that you've got the right person picked out to do this stuff. You want to store your digital inventory and plan, right? There's a difference between just a plain old digital inventory where you've copied down all of your accounts and a digital asset plan where you've provided instructions. You need to store that in a secure location. So that's going to have highly sensitive information on it, passwords, access codes, PIN codes, things of that nature. So you want to keep that somewhere that's very safe. Maybe lock it in a cabinet. I don't know that I would necessarily put it in the safe, but you might want to keep it in a cabinet of some kind. Just want to make sure that whoever needs to have access to it has access to it. And safe sometimes isn't the best place to put it because it's tough to get in there. You could leave it with your attorney. I don't know that I would put it in a safe deposit box. I think those are tough to get into. But one really good solution is to use a digital online storage service. We've partnered with a company called Final Security that does that. You can find them on our website. On the digital asset planning page of our website, there's information about Final Security. It can be very time consuming to create a digital asset inventory and a plan, and you have to keep up with it. That's a lot of work, and you're going to try to give somebody instructions on what to do. It's a whole lot easier to do it with an online solution like Final Security, where you can put all that information in the cloud. You designate a couple of people to do that to have access to that. And you tell Final Security, if I pass away, if you get a notice that I pass away, here's who you can give access to all of my information to. And then Final Security can actually do some of the work that you would be assigning to a digital executor. So Final Security can access your cell phone and clean it. It can go into your email accounts and clean them, or set a message of some kind to go out. So they can do that kind of a thing for you. So that's really a fabulous solution to be thinking about, because this is going to be something that'll be very cumbersome for a lot of people to manage all of those digital assets, especially for the number that you have. And then make it legal, right? You got to formalize your digital estate plan and make reference to it in a will, or a trust. You want to identify your digital executor in your will. If you have a power of attorney, you're going to want to make sure that your power of attorney makes reference to, gives your agent the ability to access your digital accounts. I mean, there is some authority under a digital act to give them access to some of those accounts, but not all. So you really have to put that in your power of attorney. It's not something that arises by the operation of law for anybody that you've named as your agent in a power of attorney. You specifically have to give that person powers to access your digital assets. Very, very important. So again, if your power of attorney or your will make no reference to digital assets of any kind, then your will and your power of attorney are outdated. You need to get them revised. Okay. So we're going to circle back to Bernstein and his blue ink memoir. So Bernstein, whenever he was typing this up in his laptop, he decided to encrypt his work in progress draft memoir. He password protected it on his computer. He passed away in 1990, and he didn't give anybody the passcodes to his memoir. And so literally Bernstein's handwritten work, his autobiography, his memoirs have been lost for all eternity. One of the greatest composers of all time had, I'm sure, something really interesting to share with all of us about what was going on in his very creative mind and his very interesting life, right? But it's gone forever because he didn't leave the passcode to access his memoirs. And so now his legacy, at least in that way, is completely gone. And if you're familiar with Bernstein, his daughter, I think, went on to write her own account of her father, and it was not necessarily complimentary. So he lost the opportunity to control the understanding of his post-mortem persona, right, by speaking to everybody after, from the grave, so to speak, through his memoirs. And instead, his daughter had the opportunity to define that, right? There was no counter narrative. He had no counter narrative to whatever his daughter wrote about him. So think of the mommy dearest kind of a situation, if you're familiar with the movie, right? She basically wrote the kids out of the will. And so to get back at her, they wrote this very unflattering book about their mother. And that's really the one that has ultimately defined what we know about her. So that's the presentation that I have. I would be more than happy to answer any questions that you have.